Welcome to day one of the 4-day embellishment walkthrough. Today is all about bending notes and being graceful with your flute playing. I'm going to show you two ways to bend notes, and that's going to be bending notes up. So typically in my flute playing and what I teach students is to bend notes up and not necessarily down, but I will show you that in case you're ever in a situation where you want to add that into your flute playing. So two methods, they are both going to lend the same result as far as sound. What you're looking for here is to practice both of them and kind of get a feel for which one works best for you. We're shooting for the same sound with both of these, but pay attention, and you may want to record yourself doing this, both audio and visual, once you kind of get the hang of it, to see which one for a listener sounds better. So here's the first way I'm going to show you is the pull. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be using my index finger and I'm going to be pulling back away from the flute. Now I'm using my index fingers, and I will for probably the majority of these exercises and embellishments that we do. They're stronger, they're more agile, they're very independent. The one thing that I caution you with when you're bending notes is be very careful of the pinch or the grip that you're giving your flute when you do this. You want this to be a light touch, because if you're gripping too much, it's going to make this whole transition of being smooth very hard to do. So make sure you're using the pads of your fingers to cover those holes, and let's start with pulling away. So with this, I'm just going to simply remove my finger from that hole. So that's the bend. I went moderately slow on that. Experiment with how slow you go and how fast you go. That will make a difference in the sound. The second way to do this, this is my preferred way of playing when I play a mid-range or high flute or even mid to low range flute. My preferred method is to push. So we've covered the pull. Now I want to focus on the push. Now when you push, you're going to have to give a little lift to the flute, because if not, what happens is the rest of your finger is going to cover up that hole and you're not going to get that note to go up. So by doing this, we've got to lift a little bit, kind of like an airplane taking off almost. Use a little bit of your imagination here. Go slow, breathe steady through this, and here we go. Very good. So that's the two ways to bend notes up. I would encourage you to practice both of those ways, figure out a way that works best for you. Remember, we want to go slow and be smooth and graceful with this. As you increase the speed, you lose a little bit of that bending. However, I have heard some pretty cool bends with like playing blues on the flute and some other fast-paced stuff. So take your time. I encourage you to record yourself both in audio and video, so that way you can review which way not only feels best for you, but which way sounds best for a listener. So you will be the player and the listener by listening to what you've recorded yourself doing. So it puts you in the seat of someone listening, and you can say, I went too fast or I went too slow, and you can pace yourself from there and figure out which sounds you can make. Now, I just shared with you how to bend with your index fingers. You can do that on the top note as well. Here's the deal. It's going to get a little tricky when you try to bend other notes. It's not that you can't, it's that you've got other fingers in the way. So if you try to bend this one, you can't move your hand the same way, because when we work with this one, it's one of the easiest because our hand is then attached. We have no more fingers holding down on the flute. So when you try to bend this one, for example, that's the tough one, because you've really got to work on the stretch of your finger, whether you push or you pull back this way. because you're anchored now on both sides. The other one that's a really tough spot is bending that bottom hole of the flute. Bending that guy is super tough because this is one of the most sensitive notes on your flute. With any bend, I also say work with your breath modulation because when you go slower with this bend, you can also work with breath by decreasing as you come off of the hole and then increasing when you're off of the hole. And what happens in that time is you're supporting the flute. You're also on a volume for like decibel level, how we measure volume, and by pitch. When you decrease, everything gets a little flatter and softer, and then when you increase, the pitch goes up, and also the volume of the flute overall goes up too. So you can be a little bit more dramatic with that. I'll give you a good example. So here we go. I'm really going to work with my volume on this bend, same bend that we've been working on. So there you go. Working with volume also lends you to be a little bit more emotive and dramatic in your flute playing. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't include this. I also said I would share with you how to bend notes down. So the fading part of this is super important. So if you don't have the breath work down for this next part, it could be a little bit more challenging. But I'll leave you with this. Let's work on fading notes or bending notes down. Here we go. So with this one, remember again, bending notes down require you to work with your breath. So you're going to want to fade your breath or volume down as you come with this. And again, like I said earlier, the pitch will be affected. So this will also help with that whole process of bending the note down. So I'm going to use the same note. I've got the top 3 closed, or if you have a 5-hole, it's just going to be that the top 2. So we have 3 holes on the bottom here. And experiment with this. So I'm going to try to cover up this hole here gently while I'm breathing into the flute, and I will be decreasing my volume as I do that. A little trick here is what I call shading the hole. I'm using the inside of my joint here. I'm resting on the side of the flute, and then I'm taking my fingertip and I'm pushing it down. This gives me a spot to know that where I am on the flute. If you try to come in from the top like this, it's going to be a little bit more challenging. So try to rest a little bit of your inside knuckle there, and then kind of come down a little bit, whether you point your fingertip down or you pick up your hand like this and move that over. So spend the next day working with bending notes up and down. Remember, slow is the way to go. With bending, you have a much more dramatic experience and the listener has more interest in hearing that tone. So stay tuned. Tomorrow we have something else coming up that will be another embellishment that you can work on. So take your time. Remember to record your experience, whether you want to write down and say, you know, these are the things that I struggled with. These are some roadblocks that I hit. These are some revelations that I had. Record this process. And I encourage you also to use your phone or computer or some way to video yourself with this as well. Stay tuned. Tomorrow we have another walkthrough for an embellishment to add to your flute playing. Thanks for watching.